Hey guys, Daniel James here, and today what we're going to be doing is taking another look into our little NOMAD series. Again, taking another look at a UAD plugin. This time, I've recently been doing a short film for FilmRite, if you guys are aware of them on YouTube. If not, I recommend checking them out if you want to be a filmmaker one day. Anyway, they've got a collection of short films, and one of them required me to go rock and roll, which is something you don't often get to do as a composer. So for this track, I needed some good sounding guitar parts. And now, as I mentioned in another video, I moved to Tokyo. For those of you unaware, Tokyo is known for its tiny apartments, which is where I'm currently working, unfortunately. So I didn't have the option to crack up a huge cab and big amp and mic everything up myself. So I had to rely on DI signal. So what I did is I put out a tweet on to internets asking if anybody wanted to play guitar on this short film for me. And now a good friend of mine, Nick Sampson, he sent me a guitar part which we'll be using for demonstration today. And what I actually wanted to do was try out these new Marshall amps from UAD and see if I could make them sound, or if they would sound themselves like a mic'd up cab. Okay, so just so that everybody's aware, this is the signal I got back. I have a rhythmic part here, some chords, kind of just open chords here, and then a solo type thing here. And now the Marshall collection comes with 4 different amps. I'm gonna layer them in what I consider the in order of like how complex they are. Complexity, there we go. So the JMP 2203, which is this one, I believe. Then the Marshall Plexi Super Lead, and then the Bluesbreaker, and then the Silver Jubilee. I put those in order of how complex I think I am, how complex they are, and I'll go through them in that order. So again, just so everybody's aware, here's the dry signal we got through. So it's a good clean signal, which I like. So let's jump in. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to turn on the preset. In fact, just so you know, I'm not doing any funny business. Let's just turn this on and see how it sounds out the box. Preset. Here we go. Now, I don't know if many of you guys have not seen or used a Marshall cab before, but to my ears, this sounded remarkably close to what I used to get when I would mic up a cab. So let's take a look at the controls. I'm sure most of you are better guitarists than I, so if I mess anything up in the explanation of these controls, please do feel free to correct me in the comments down below. So with most Marshall cabs, you get a presence, bass, middle, and treble. These are your EQ essentially. So presence adding how present it is. Then bass. So you're going to use these to sculpt the kind of tone you want from your raw guitar sound. Now the film I had in mind was very drunk kind of rock, so I just wanted that really splashy kind of sound, so I didn't move it far from where it was. So here we have the master volume and a preamp volume. So the reason you would have 2 volumes is so you can turn one up to get a more distorted tone. So the preamp is the one you want to turn up for how distorted you want it, essentially, with this one. And like I mentioned, because it's kind of You know, the scene in question is a fight within a bar. What I wanted to do was have a really kind of loose cab type sound. But you see, because I'm pulling the preamp down, the overall volume has come down, so I can kind of balance it out a little bit. And then you have a switch over here, so low sensitive, if you want to get some nice clean tones. I don't know if you guys are guitarists, if many of you are. I hope you agree with me that this is kind of a cool tone straight out the box. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to click and drag to the left here, and it brings up the mix window. And one of the cool things I like about this is that it allows you to try out different mics. So I'm just going to turn off, because you have two by default. So here we have a 414. We have a 57, SM57 I'm imagining. An SM7B. 251. Which almost kind of doubles as a room mic here. So, well, I think it is a room mic. So what I want to do here is, the way I've been using this, the way I used it in the film, is because you can select two different mics and you can pan them around independently. What I actually did was I decided what I wanted to do was make it feel like a dirty, drunk rock band, which I have a bit of experience with in my youth. Sorry, don't know why I went all gangster for a second there. But so then if I what I was choosing is, because this one here, this 251 sounded like a room mic, I used it as such. So what I did with that is I left that centered, okay? And then what I wanted to do is, because I had multiple guitar parts, you know, layered up, I actually used 4 guitarists in the end on the film. What I would do is I would leave the room mic kind of in the middle, and then I would pick a close mic out of this selection here, one that I particularly like the sound of, that gave me the right tone, gave me the correct tone. And I went with the 7B. You can turn it off, but it's a nasty tone. So what I would do is I'd do that, turn the room mic on, and then I would actually pan one of the guitar's close mic to the left. And what you should hear is, because the room mic is dead center, it feels like you're just moving the mic. I mean, you are moving the mic position in terms of actual pan, but it feels like you're changing the viewing angle, you know, the perspective of the actual mic. So if I pan this, you should hear it happen. And what that does is, I mean, it'll be really apparent if I turn off the room mic. You'll hear all of a sudden, particularly if you're wearing headphones, the sound just goes to the left, which is kind of boring. But if I turn on the room mic, you get this kind of nice, warm stereo feel to it. So that's pretty cool. And over here we have our EQ section, so high gain, and then obviously mid and low. For those of you who don't know how this works, so mid gain, like, you can change the actual frequency you want to be changing here. You can't change it with the high and low, but you can change it with the two mids. whenever I put like a bit of delay on that for the solo, we'll hear how it sounds. I don't know about you, but to me that sounds like a mic'd up cab. Like if I turn it off. So that's awesome. So that's the first one. That's the one I use the most because it's the most, to me it's the most basic one in terms of controls, and it gave me exactly the type of sound I wanted. So what we're going to do now is move to the Plexi Super Lead, the 1959. So again, similar vibe. So we have our presence bass, middle with the cap falling off, it looks like, treble, and then we have two sets of volume. I'll show you how that works in a second. And as you can hear, this is a more classical kind of. So not being a guitar player, I apologize if I fucked this explanation up, but essentially here you have two separate inputs, and by clicking on it you actually change the lead setup itself. So you can have just volume 1. You see, by changing volume 2 nothing changes. Or you can just have volume 2. And these work a bit like the preamp in the other one, but yeah. But if you click it twice, you can actually change the setup. So you can have two ones and so if I have like 1 down and 2 all the way up, so 2 2s will be loud, be more distorted, and 2 1s will be quieter. I think I broke it. Sorry about that. I had it too low. But yeah, if you have 1 down all the way, so 1 1 will sound very quiet. Not quiet, but it will sound under distorted. And then 2 will be, loud. So 2 2s and a 1 is going to be more loud, and 2 1s and a 2. So again, I apologize if I cocked that up, but that's how it looks like it works to me, which I think is a good explanation for any of those who don't know how it works, because we're all going to do the same nonsense anyway. So again, same with the 2203. I can drag this to the left, and you see we get a slightly different setup here. So as you can see, the mic choice has already been chosen for us, and we can't change it, but each one does come with a room mic. So if you remember how we set up the last one, so if we wanted, we could actually use these two mics and make a wider perspective. We could change the perspective like that. And we also, if we want, could just have a room mic. What I tend to do with these is I have one up the middle and then one wherever I want the sound. So here we have our valve microphone, the 67s here. We can change this and it'll become the FET microphone. So we have a 705 and an 87 and the room mic of 4038. course, we have dynamic up here, which is your 57, your 609, and an 87. I'm just going to put some reverb and delay on that solo, just make it feel a bit more. Absolutely love it. Again, with the equalizer here, you just have a low and high. So So this tone is more of a gentle tone, I think. It's more of a classical kind of sound. And I didn't mention it, but there is an on-off switch here, should one want to use it. Okay, so let's move on to the Bluesbreaker, the 1962. Now this one feels a little different to me. I'm not actually hearing much difference when I turn the tremolo up here. I don't know if that's just me or... Okay, I can hear it there. It's a very subtle effect. So like if you listen, you hear a... And then of course if I slow that down... But it's a very, very subtle effect, even on 100 intensity. But anyway, so you get a tremolo built in, but a very, very subtle kind of sounding one. I wish it was a little bit more intense, but I guess that wouldn't be authentic enough. But yeah, again, same controls. So we have presence, bass, middle, treble, and then we have high, where we have the loudness. And like the Plexi Super Lead that came before it, we have we have the valve FET and dynamic mic setup. And this one works a little bit differently again, because this time we have two close mics. These ones are actually joined, you know, the U67. And then we have two separate room mics. We have a 4038 and a 251, and I believe this is the distance away. So let's take a listen to these. So if you so desire here, you could actually spread them out. has like the Plexi before it does have options. So they're the valve mics, here are the FET mics. So we've got a Voodoo 6 away and then 12 away. So as you can hear, you can get a very cool tone out of those ones. And then, of course, dynamics, you get your SM57 again. And that's a good way to actually use them, is to find a good tone, you know, with your close mics. You know, that kind of dry tone, and then bring in one of the room mics, but subtly until it starts to sound better. And to me, for some reason, the actual room mic makes it sound more realistic, like I'd actually mic'd up a cab. And I noticed that when I was doing the film, because I had 4 of these, when I had no room mics, it sounded very DI, sounded very just, I've plugged a guitar into a computer and now this is how it sounds. Whereas with the room mics you get on these Marshall emulations, I think, to me, when I pull these up, it instantly sounds like it's recorded in a real room. I can't decide if that's done through convolution, or I assume it is, or, you know, some sort of wizardry. So yeah, that's that one, and then finally, we're going to we're going to move on to the Marshall Silver Jubilee 2555. Now this one's got the nice metal sheen to it. So let's just listen to this one out the box. So this one, slightly different front panel from the others. So obviously you have your power and standby switch, but then you also have low and high output. So, you know, if you want it to throughput, you know, a low intensity or a high one, we're going with high because why not? And then you have your master output here, and then you have a lead master. So if you want to push, you know, up the crunch a bit. And then you have a rhythm clip here. Not fully sure what it does, but it just changes the tone a bit. It's almost like it slightly compresses it a touch. That's a cool tone. So again, we're going to pull this across. And as you can see, again, a slightly different interface. Now this one's got a cool little room mic thing here. But first I'll show you the mic. So we get a 67, an 87. This is the condenser microphone. So then we have a 4038 as a room. And then we have an RNR. So if I turn this on, It's a cool room sound, but one of the cool things about this is I can actually set how much of a delay there is. So like, it almost like there's a slapback delay. Which you can't really tell until I put a close mic on. I just realised that. So it gets a little bit mental up there, and then feedback over here. So it actually then becomes a delay. But if I put that on the... It's then become like a delay, so I'm not having to do it for the solos there. And one of the things about this emulation is it actually sounds the most real to me. I don't know if it's the room mics themselves, but as you can see, I've just got a 67 and 4038 here as my room mic, and this is my solo mic. And like I mentioned at the beginning with that technique of having the room mic in the center and then the close mic off to the side. Then bring in my delay. So that's a cool little feature there. And again, we have dynamic mics if we want those. Of course the off, which we don't use very much. And then there's no EQ dials or anything that I can see on here. So this one just has the input gate. So of course, like if you've got like a you know, this would be too quiet. I don't actually have much of an... And then you see it just slowly fades in as it does. So yeah, that is a general overview of all the different Marshall cabs that you get in the library. One thing I did want to mention though is it is actually part of their Unison technology, which is pretty cool. One of the cool things about the Apollo Twin, and as you can see, I'm recording through this right now. One of the cool things about it is when you actually plug into it, they have this thing called Unison technology, and what it does is it uses the DSP, like the digital signal processing of the actual unit, to replicate how it changes things like the impedance and like basically just the way the sound would flow through the digital circuitry of a piece of analog gear and it recreates those. So when I plug into the Apollo Twin, as I've done here with the Neve on my voice, the preamps, obviously the preamps don't physically change, but the way they interact with the electricity is changed to emulate, as far as I'm aware, one for one what the hardware equivalent will do. I've watched testimonials and of people who own both. I don't own a Neve console, and I don't own any of these Marshall cabs in person, so I can't do a comparison for you today. But one of the things about that is as I mentioned right now, I'm using the Apollo Twin, and it's going through a Neve 1073, which if you look up, I recommend you go look up how much that piece of equipment costs compared to the Apollo Twin, and then if I'm getting a similar kind of sonic characteristic through my Apollo Twin, I'm happy with that. But that's not what I wanted to mention. What I wanted to mention was, because of that Unison technology, you can actually run one of those cabs on your input. So when you plug in, it's as if you're actually, like I was loading them then as a plug-in, which is a little bit different because the input signal, the actual physical signal going from the guitar into the preamps, has already happened. That's already been recorded. So I'm changing it after the fact. Whereas with the Unison technology here, what you're actually doing is because these are changing the actual way the signal is interacting with the circuitry of the actual unit. God, there's a lot of roundabout ways of saying this, but because it's changing it, it's as if you're actually plugging in to one of these amp heads. So I don't have a guitar with me today, so I can't show that. And the other cool thing about it, because it's Unison technology, it's actually zero latency. So when you're playing, that was always one of the things that used to bug me, because I used to be in a band when I was a bit younger. One of the things that always used to bug me was when I would plug into a guitar, I couldn't track through like a DI guitar amp simulation, because there was always like a lag. But the Unison technology is completely, like, it's latency free, and you're tracking through one of these. So when you put these on, and like I've seen it done, particularly if you've got headphones on, but even if you've got speakers and you're playing it through, it feels like you actually have a cab in another room and you've mic'd it up and you're listening to it through a desk. It's bizarre, but it's one of the things I absolutely love about the Apollo Twin. So that's why I keep doing these videos for you on the UAD plugins, mostly because I'm finding so much use for that. Like I mentioned in the Moog video we did before this, because it has because it offsets the processing power onto its built-in unit. Again, I'm not using any of my computer CPU or processing at all to use these plugins. It's all being done externally, so that means I can use a lot more plugins, a lot more processing in any given project, even on a laptop studio, which I'm using right now. And I've done a ton of scores with these now, and I haven't had any trouble, all thanks to all this extra processing power I've been given because of things like UAD plugins. So yeah, I hope you guys found this useful today. Guitars are a little bit out of my my regular overview zone, but I hope some of you, particularly those of you who do a lot of rock kind of stuff, have found this useful. I absolutely loved playing with it. I can't wait when the film comes out that that I referenced a lot in this video comes out. I will link it down below so you can go watch how the actual track turned out, because that did actually have 4 guitarists in it, so it's a little bit of a full live sound. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video today. Like I mentioned in the video before, there will be a few more UAD plugin overviews coming up, mostly because I'm finding them all super useful, so I'm going through them all myself, and if I find any that you guys that I think you guys would find useful, or ones that I particularly like, I'll do a little video on them, because these can be a little bit shorter. They can be 20-30 minutes long as opposed to 3 hours or whatever the sample library ones usually end up being. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video today, and I hope to see you all in the next one.